If you are one of the hundreds of thousands of American citizens that have ever paid income tax, this message is for you. Donald Trump confirmed at Tuesday night's State of the Union that he plans to use tariffs to eliminate the income tax. Now, we have known for years that he has a mission to make us go back to the gold back dollar to end the Federal Reserve altogether, because every bit of it was a hijacking of our country. Trump exposed the only reason we're still paying an income tax in America is because US politicians are paid off by foreign countries to not mandate tariffs, but there's so much more to that story. In the early 1900s, they switched over to income tax, and they did it illegally. You need 30 states to agree to any kind of amendment or taxes on the people, and only 2 states officially signed off. Countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now, the salary that we pay them to work in their governing offices does not make them the multimillionaires that they are. Anyone that's complaining about tariffs is a sellout, plain and simple. We are all literally paying an income tax because our US politicians are taking bribes from foreign countries to enrich themselves and ignoring the constitutional rules. And every one of you should be furious. Let me just share a clip with you.
Unless they pay a big price, and the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. You know, they, believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now. But we had a commission meeting in the, I think it was 1887. Think of this problem. We were so rich. We had so much money. We didn't know what to do. So they set up a blue ribbon commission on tariffs. And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China does it. That's what China did. If you want to open a factory and sell cars, if you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They wouldn't take our cars. But if you build a plant in China, you can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of Elon. Him. He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy. That rocket coming in.
Interesting little add in there about Elon, right? He's from a different planet. There are a lot of people that think he's an alien. So that's kind of a hoot, you know. Now, let me just show you this as well. So this is a memo from the Department of the Treasury, Washington, D.C., Internal Revenue Service, to all district directors, dated April 4th, 1985. On March 5th, 1985, a charge of tax evasion was filed in the U.S. District Court in Indianapolis, Indiana, by the U.S. Attorney General Duncan. The charges were dismissed. The defense attorney, Lowell Bowcraft, I think is what that says, of Huntsville, Alabama, presented irrefutable evidence that the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was never properly ratified. This amendment, which established the income tax, was signed into law despite serious defects. In reality, only 2 states ratified the amendment, and ratification requires 30 states to be valid. The effect of this is such that every tax paid into the Treasury since 1913 is due and refundable to every citizen and business. The official position of the service is, as it has always been, to aid and assist the citizens of the United States. We will not publish or advertise this finding, as a total immediate refund would cause a serious drain on the resources of the Treasury. For those citizens who become aware of this finding and apply for a total refund, expedite their refund documents as quickly and as quietly as possible. A simple 1040X form will suffice until a new form is designed and printed. Advise each of your managers that they are not to discuss this situation with anyone. There will be no written communication, and you are to destroy this memorandum. The Secretary of the Treasury assures me that there will be no reduction in the workforce, as this refunding activity will take a minimum of 5 years to complete. Further directions will be forwarded as the need arises. And then this is signed by Roscoe L. Egger, Commissioner of Internal Revenue. So as you can see, it's right there in writing. Not every one of us have been being taxed on our income illegally, basically. And this is something that Trump knows, and he wants to ratify this with the American people without causing our country to go bankrupt. And by going to the tariffs and going back to the gold-backed dollar, we will see this money come back to all of us, guaranteed. So if you're still paying IRS taxes, trust that you will get a refund of all of your taxes that have ever been paid. And remember that the gold was taken from under the Vatican, and that belonged to us. That's why that is what will fund the refunds of all of the individuals and businesses since 1913. That along with the tariffs, because Trump is a very fair man, and he will make sure that we are compensated accordingly. Now, also, let me show you this. The Vatican's underground secrets. The Vatican's 1,500-mile long tunnel that goes to Jerusalem, and the secret gold stash that was transferred to Fort Knox. A revelation that will shatter history. Uncover the Vatican's explosive secret of a hidden 1,500-mile tunnel stretching all the way to Jerusalem, packed with unimaginable gold. And this is no conspiracy. It's a shocking truth that reveals the Vatican's grip on wealth and power. We're going to dive deep into a world of ancient technology, hidden treasures, and a revelation that defies history. So prepare to question everything.
There was more gold than you can imagine found in the tunnel under the Vatican City. Running from Vatican City, and deep underground, there is a tunnel that runs almost in a direct line to Jerusalem. The actual direct flight distance is 1,432.90 miles, 2,306.03 kilometers. The length of the tunnel was given as approximately 1,500 miles, so it cuts through underneath both land and water. Starting from the Vatican City, for the first 150 miles, 241 kms, there was found a huge amount of gold stacked 13 levels high. I'm not sure what 13 levels high actually means, but whatever, it was a lot. Along with this massive amount of gold were found many books or manuscripts. It has been said that these ancient books were stolen out of the Bible. Do I believe that? Well, I'm not going there, as it would be conjecture at best. I'm just reporting what was relayed to Charlie Ward as to the findings under the Vatican. You may remember that when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit, one of the worst places was in Italy. Remember all the headlines. COVID-19 pandemic in Italy. Italy scrambles to contain second wave as daily COVID-19. Italy's daily COVID-19 cases hit new high. And on, and on, and on. This was when the alliance and military were taking down the 13 bloodline families, and the Vatican. During this period they found the underground tunnels, the gold and the scrolls/books, etc. It was completely necessary that they kept the world's attention on the virus, which allowed them to clean out the tunnel and other necessary work that needed to be done. 650 airplanes were required to carry away all the gold that was brought out of the tunnel which led to Jerusalem. Please note that when they went to Buckingham Palace, they found similar, huge amounts of gold etc., stored up for the wealthy, having been robbed from the poor. It was all taken to Fort Knox for safekeeping. When Nisaragasara are being rolled out, much of this gold will be used on humanitarian projects. There is more than enough gold in the world to back all the world's currencies on a one-to-one basis, and sufficient to take care of all needs worldwide. We are moving into a different world, only made possible by the complete removal of the evil cabal who have been busy robbing us blind in every possible way. It raises so many questions, doesn't it? The love of money is the root of all evil, the Bible quotes in 1 Timothy 6:10. Please notice it's the love of money, not the money itself, that is the root of all evil. Loving money, and ever being greedy for more money, which brings with it power, which ultimately leads to total control of others. Does this give a full picture of what the New World Order have been working at over a very long time? So there was more gold than you can imagine found in the tunnel that connected the Vatican with Jerusalem. How did it get there? Who put it there? Over how many thousands of years has it continued to be stockpiled? Will we ever know? Who knows?
Let me also show you this. Breaking: U.S. banks have been transporting gold from London to New York, with thousands of gold bars being removed out of the Bank of England's vaults in recent months and put back into Fort Knox. Then we also have high purity gold was taken out of Fort Knox in the late 60s and flown from the U.S. to RAF Middlehall in England and convoyed down to the Bank of England bullion office to their vaults in the City of London, and the gold bars were withdrawn to the market, a cartel of English and French bankers, and then they closed down the London Gold Pool on March 15, 1968, as they had heisted all the good delivery gold out of Fort Knox. That was the real Fort Knox heist, not Goldfinger. Remember the James Bond movie? But a bunch of wealthy European bankers. Who were they fronting? Amazing that they got away with it, but they gamed the system, which was to defend the $35 per ounce price. And then we have this post. And that one, by the way, was from March 14th, 2025. This one's from April 22nd, 2023. That says, starting with Vatican City for the first 150 miles, there was found a huge amount of gold stacked 13 levels high. 650 airplanes were required to carry all the gold that was brought out of the tunnel to Fort Knox. The gold has been recovered by the military. Now, of course, this is for entertainment purposes only. And it's fun to think that all of us may be getting a good chunk of change soon for our compensation for all of the illegal ways that we've had to pay taxes. And I look forward to our country and the world being corrected in how we do business and how we treat our citizens. So I hope this is true. Um, I have no way to know for sure, but I hope it's true. It'll be a really good blessing for so many people who desperately need that extra money so that they can live fully without worry and without stress. So exciting times ahead of us. And isn't it funny how Trump is always talking about how this is the beginning of the golden age? And speaking of taxes, what did Q ever say about taxes? Q says, who are the silent thieves? Why are they manipulating you? How are they stealing your wealth? Bubble, crash, steal, lie, repeat. What is inflation? Monetary manipulation. Taxation without representation. Put an end to the endless. 1913. Proof. That's what you call a Q proof. Something that matches what I'm saying to you about what's been going on and what is about to happen. How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact from fiction? The majority of people are more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Do people, human psyche, tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? Mainstream is used for a reason. Dominate the trend in opinion. If majority of people believe X, then X must be validated in truth. Why do mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords and or catchphrases? Coordinated? By who? Outside entity providing instruction? Do they count on the fact that people, human psyche, are more prone to believe something if heard over and over again by different trusted sources? Do echo chamber tactics provide validation, credibility to the topic point being discussed? Threat to intellectual freedom? Would control over or of these institutions, organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoints regarding a desired topic? Read again, digest. Would control over of these institutions, organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoint or desired topic? Think BLM push every 4 years. Logical thinking. Why, after the 2016 incident, did Dees and MediaCorp jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods regarding illegitimacy of those things, character assassinations of our POTUS through various means? How much of the population still believes that POTUS colluded with Russia due to the mainstream media and DNC? There were no retractions of POTUS and Russia collusion narrative. Why? Why were or are violent and masked terror organizations immediately created and funded and allowed to operate within the Dems' control cities, right? The sanctuary areas. Why were these orgs tasked with immediate intimidation and shutdown of any pro-POTUS rally and or event? Why were marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rally or event? Why were marches immediately organized, which divided people into race, sex, gender, whatever? When you control the levers of news dissemination, you control the narrative. Control of the narrative equals power. When you are blind, what do you see? They want you divided. Divided by religion, by race, by sex, by political affiliation, by class. Because when you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible. Divided, you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or the stable, the livestock kept, or the sheep. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, in groupthink collective, and have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism, rather than on authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. This represents a clear and present danger to constitutional republic of the United States of America. So it is important for us to use our critical thinking. It's important for us to not just go for anything that's being thrown out there, not believe things immediately as soon as we read them or see them, to actually use our brain and our critical logical thinking and use discernment to understand the difference between fact and fiction, because we don't, I don't know what that was. One of my kids just made something go pow. We don't want to be misled, and we don't want to mislead others, right? So we need to think critically. And even in the stuff that I have shared with you at the beginning of this, may or may not be true. I'm hoping it is. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for it. I'm going to remain hopeful. But we have no way of knowing for sure if any of that's true or not. All we can do is digest the information and see how it marinates within us and feels. Does it feel like truth? Or does it feel like it's probably fake or a lie? So I do feel like Trump is going to end income tax. I do feel like we are definitely going to get refunds through the tariff money, and hopefully also through the gold that was retrieved and brought back, if that's a true story. We'll see. Time will tell.